Show your appreciation for this man to come to our school.
Hello? Hi. How's everybody? Good? Glad to be here. Glad to be enrolled in taking classes here. Thank you. Thanks. It's my pleasure to be here, an honor to be here to share with you today poetry and my love of poetry with you. And a lot of the inaugural poetry all I know I've read, right? I've studied and all that. Great. So what I want to do real quickly is just give you a little bit more background on the poem. Stuff that's very personal and some of the inspiration behind the poem, some of where the poem comes from for me, things that aren't necessarily in the book, but that when you go back and read the poem, you'll understand even a little bit more about what that poem was all about and what I intended that poem to be. So one of the first things you have to understand, or I want to share with you, is that I had a very complicated beginning as a child. My mom left Cuba, my family left Cuba, and then I was born in Madrid, Spain. And then 45 days later after I was born, we emigrated, we moved to New York City. And then when I was 4 years old, we moved to Miami. So what did that all mean? When I could look back on my childhood, when I was about your age, and started to ask questions about where am I from, where I come from, and what's going on, I realized that by the time I was 45 days old, just 45 days old, I belonged to 3 countries. I belonged to the country my parents were from, Cuba. I belonged to Madrid, Spain, where I was born. And then I was living in the United States at 45 days old. So that kind of started me thinking about this whole idea of what home is and what America is and where do I belong and how do I fit in. They were 2 worlds that I was sort of thinking about specifically. One was my parents' Cuba. Everybody know where Cuba is? Let me go back to the map down there. A little island somewhere off the coast of Miami. It's been in the news a lot lately. But one world was the world of my parents, which was Cuba and this place that we were from. You know when your parents always tell you stories about when they were young, what they used to do and where they lived and all that. It's kind of the same thing. There was this island in the Caribbean, this tropical island that we were supposedly from, but I had never been there, so I wasn't sure what to think about it. But we also lived in Miami. Anybody been to Miami? Yeah. So Miami is kind of a neat place. Miami is kind of a very Latin place, a very Latino place. There's actually a lot of Cubans in Miami. And I grew up surrounded mostly by people like me, Cubans like me, Cuban Americans like me. So America sort of felt a little bit like a place that I wasn't quite there. It wasn't the America I saw on television, like stories like the Brady Bunch. Any Brady Bunch fans out there? A little bit. Good. I'm so glad to know the Brady Bunch has not died. So in some ways, I always thought about that America was someplace in New England, not, like the idea of being an American meant something like the things I saw on TV and the foods I saw on TV and the little kids I saw on TV. So a lot of what I started when I was young was sort of thinking about these 2 things. Where do I belong? What is this Cuba? What is this America, this United States? And I had some very big questions when I was your age. Some very big questions for a very little boy. And I just wanted, you can see my very confused face on that portrait from Kmart. I was a terribly sad clown in that photo too. I don't know if you can read them all the way, but there were some pretty big questions I had to think about. What is home? Where do I belong? Who am I, really? All these kinds of questions I started asking at a very, very young age. Part of that asking of home and whatnot has to do a lot with my mom. That's my mom with me at the inauguration, President Obama's inauguration. That's a photo of my mom back in Cuba. But my mom left her entire family behind in Cuba. All her 8 brothers and sisters, all her parents, all her aunts and uncles, all her nieces and nephews, everyone behind. And so the idea, and how many of you remember the two references in the inaugural poem to my mom? Remember? Yeah, so that's why she's in the poem. She's very special to me in that way, because my mom sort of left Cuba for kind of to follow the American dream and to think about a better life for myself and my brother. So on that quest for home and belonging, I eventually went to Cuba for the first time in 1994, and that was pretty amazing. I also got my first teaching job in Connecticut, which is not too far from here, and that was pretty fascinating to watch or see that America that I had only seen on TV. But I still wasn't sure where I belonged. Cuba didn't feel quite right. Connecticut, I didn't feel quite right. I wasn't sure where I belonged in that world. And so I moved back to Miami, and this is me as a little kid in Miami, and searching again for that place where I came from and what was home. So that's what I want to share with you right now. This, for a moment, is the poem you have in your hands. I went back, like I said, to live in Miami, and I went to this place that was a place I used to go since I was a little kid, and even all of my teenage years. And I thought I thought it would be the same place that it always was, because I didn't think anything had changed, and it did. And so this poem is about how I didn't find exactly what I thought I would find. But we all have sort of a place like that in our lives. How many of you, you know the idea of a staycation? So where are some of the places you've gone with your family? Great. Where? Anybody?
Orange Lake Resort.
Orange Lake, Florida? So have you gone there more than once? Florida, great. Well, give me another couple places. Yeah, we all have a sort of a little special place in our memory already, even at your young age, a place that's filled with happy and great memories. And that's basically what this poem is about. And then after I read this poem, I'm going to do a little exercise. Okay, you can follow along if you like. Looking for the Golf Motel, Marco Island, Florida. There should be nothing here I don't remember. The Golf Motel with mermaid lampposts and ship's wheel in the lobby should still be rising out of the sand like a cake decoration. My brother and I should still be pretending we don't know our parents, embarrassing us as they roll the luggage cart past the front desk, loaded with our scruffy suitcases, 24 loaves of Cuban bread, brown bags bulging with enough mangoes to last an entire week, our espresso pot, the pressure cooker, and a pork roast speaking garlic through the lobby. All because we can't afford to eat out. Not even on vacation. Only 2 hours from our home in Miami, but far enough away to be thrilled by the wire stands on the west coast of Florida, where I should still be, for the first time, watching the sun set instead of rise over the ocean. There should be nothing here I don't remember. My mother should still be in the kitchenette of the Golf Motel, her daisy sandals from Kmart squeaking across the linoleum, still gorgeous in her teal swimsuit and amber earrings, stirring a pot of arroz con pollo, adding sprinkles of onion powder and dollops of tomato sauce. My father should still be in a terry cloth jacket, smoking, clinking a glass of amber whiskey in the sunset at the Golf Motel, watching us dive into the pool, two boys who'll never see grow into men who will be proud. There should be nothing here I don't remember. My brother and I should still be playing parcheesi. My father should still be alive, slow dancing with my mother on the sliding glass balcony of the Golf Motel. No music, only the waves keeping time. A song only their minds hear 10,000 nights back to their life in Cuba. My mother's face should still be resting against his bare chest like the moon resting on the sea. The stars should still be turning around him. There should be nothing here I don't remember. My brother should still be 13, sneaking around in the bathroom and sculpting naked women from sand. And I should still be 8 years old, dazzled by seashells and how many seconds I can hold my breath underwater. But I'm not. I'm 38, driving up Collier Boulevard, looking for the golf motel, for everything that should still be, but isn't. I want to blame the condos, the shadows for ruining the beach in my past. I want to chase the snowbirds away with their tagging of mansions and yachts. I want to turn the golf courses back into mangroves. I want to find the golf motel exactly as it was and pretend for just a moment that nothing I've lost is lost. So I want to take in a really quick and pretty simple exercise with this poem. But I'm going to ask you this question first. How do we experience the world? It's kind of a science question.
Of these senses.
Through our senses. Exactly. Now, I want you to really think about that for a moment. I mean, this is something we learn in science class, but really think about that for a moment. Everything that becomes an abstract thought in our mind, and what you offered was great, but it was something that at one point had to be sensory experience. We don't absorb, like, when we think about the word love, it's because we see our mother or our father, because we've held them, because we've touched them. Everything, what does a little baby do? What's the first thing a little baby does when you give them something? Puts it in his mouth, right? Puts it in her mouth. Everything that we learn, in some ways, you have to use our five senses. There's no other way to do it. When you read a book, you have to use your eyes. You have to use your hands to hold the book. So it's really all about the senses. And poetry, in many ways, one of the founding principles of poetry, of writing really, is to replicate those senses in writing so that you can experience what it is I'm trying to show you, what I'm trying to make you listen to, what I'm trying to make you see, etc., etc. So I'm just going to go over the poem real quickly, and I'm going to I'm going to assign senses to the grids, okay? So you remember your sense. And we have 5 senses here. So Montessori can take sight, okay? So that's your sense. K through 2, where are the K through 2? Okay, you're going to do smell, remember, that's your sense, smell. Okay, grade 3 and 4? All right, you're going to do taste. Grade 5 and 6? Okay, touch, the sense of touch, that's going to be your sense. And 7 and 8, what you hear, okay? So I'm going to read this poem a little bit faster and less artistically, and then I want to go through the senses with all of them, okay? Not the whole poem, I'm going to read the first stanza. There should be nothing here I don't remember. The golf hotel with mermaid lampposts and ship's wheel in the lobby should still be rising out of the sand like a cake decorator. Now be paying attention, be watching out for your sense. Where do you see your sense in the poem when I'm reading it? The golf hotel with mermaid lampposts and ship's wheel in the lobby should still be rising out of the sand like a cake decorator. My brother and I should still be pretending we don't know our parents, embarrassing us as they roll the luggage cart past the front desk, loaded with our scruffy suitcases, 2 dozen loaves of cuban bread, brown bags bulging with enough mangoes to last the entire week, our espresso pot, the pressure cooker, and a pork roast creaking garlic through the lobby. All right, I'm going to start with K through 2. What did you smell in the poem? Give me a couple things. The pork roast. What else?
Garlic.
Well, that stands. Yeah. Okay. The garlic. Right. What else? I can't. Yeah. the espresso pot. Now, notice I didn't say the smell of coffee in the poem, right? I just put an espresso pot. But your senses, imagine, immediately fill in that smell, right? What else? A couple other things. Something that might not be food. Did you smell something that wasn't food, maybe? The sand, right? The sand. Sand is a very particular smell. Okay. The smell of the wood. Yeah, but especially in a seaside where the wood gets a little musty, right? Okay, let's do taste. 3 or 4, which is very related to smell, right? But what did you taste?
You said taste, right?
Yeah, we're at taste right now.
Third and fourth graders, taste.
I taste mangoes.
Alright, you taste mangoes. Touch. A lot of times people will say the touch of the mermaid lamppost and the ship's wheel that has a particular sense, right? Particular thing in your hands. The touch of the paper bag holding the mangoes. Just like I said, the smell of sand, also the feel of sand in your hands or in your toes. Another one would be here. Alright, so we got a couple here. Go ahead, let's sort of skip just one from the crowd here. You can just scream it out loud.
The clicking of her during the espresso pot on the pressure cooker. So you can hear the clicking kind of with her, and you can hear the rolling of the luggage cart.
Yeah, the rolling of the luggage cart. We can also touch the luggage cart, even that way. You can also taste the espresso. All that stuff is going on at the same time. But you can hear that squeaky little wheel across the marble floor, right, of the luggage cart, and that clanky of that luggage cart. And finally, C, which is basically the whole entire poem. There's a lot of visual. Now, I'm an engineer also, so I tend to think in terms of percentages. If you had to put a percent of how much of that first stanza has sensory detail, in other words, something you smell, touch, hear, or taste, feel, whatever, 5 senses, what percent would you think that first stanza has of sensory details? Do you think 50% or more? 80% or more? It probably about 98%. I noticed that it's about 98% is sensory detail. That's exactly what this poem is made of. All I'm doing is replicating kind of like a movie, showing you the sights, the smells, the touches, etc., for you to enjoy. And can you see how the inaugural poem that you are more familiar with sort of does the same thing? Do you remember some of the images that stand out for you from the inaugural poem? There's no wrong answer.
The sun rising.
The sun rising? Yeah, that was definitely one. Anybody else? Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, the what? The trucks on the highway, teaming over the highway, right? What else? The cat? Yeah, the cat is definitely in the picture book, right? It's not in the poem, but Dave gave me a cat, which is very cute. What else? What other sensory images or details you stuck out of here? Pencil yellow school buses, right? So, I mean, if you go back over the poem, I'm going to read the poem for you now, and I just want you to listen and realize also that poem is made out of sensory details. That's a very big part of how you understand the poem. So, here's a scene from the inauguration, and the whole idea of home and coming back home, and the incredible honor of reading that poem was something that meant a lot to me. So I'll just read it before you have to go. All right. One today. One sun rose on us today, kindled over our shores, peeking over the Smokies, greeting the faces of the Great Lakes, spreading a simple truth across the Great Plains, then charging over the Rockies. One light, waking up rooftops, under each one a story told by our silent gestures, moving behind windows. My face, your face, millions of faces in morning mirrors, each one yawning to life, crescendoing to our day. Pencil yellow school buses, the rhythm of traffic lights, fruit stands, apples, limes, and oranges, arrayed like rainbows, begging our praise. Silver trucks heavy with oil or paper, bricks or milk, teeming over highways alongside us, on our road, clean tables, read ledgers, or save lives, to teach geometry or ring up groceries as my mother did for 20 years so I could write this poem for us today. All of us as vital as the one light we move through, the same light on blackboards with lessons for the day, equations to solve, history to question, or atoms to imagine. The I have a dream, we keep dreaming, or the impossible vocabulary of sorrow that won't explain the empty desks of children marked absent today and forever. Many prayers, but one light breathing color into stained glass windows, light into the faces of bronze statues, warmth into the steps of our museums and park benches as mothers watch children slide into the day. One ground, our ground, rooting us to every stalk of corn, every head of wheat sown by sweat and hands gleaming coal and planting windmills in deserts and hilltops, hands digging trenches, hands routing pipes and cables, hands as worn as my father's cutting sugar cane, so my brother and I could have books and shoes. The dust of our farms and deserts, our cities and plains mingled by one lane, ours, right? Breathe. Here, through the day's gorgeous din of honking cabs, buses launching down avenues, the symphony, footsteps, guitars, and screeching subways, the unexpected songbird on the clothesline. Here, squeaky playground swings, trains whistling or whispering across cafe tables. Here, the doors we open for each other, all say hello, shalom, bonjour, howdy, namaste, or buenos dias. In the language my mother taught me, in every language spoken into one wind carrying our lives without prejudice, as these words break from my lips. One sky since the Appalachians and Sierras claimed their majesty, and the Mississippi and Colorado worked their way to the sea. Thank the work of our hands, weaving steel into bridges, finishing one more report for the boss on time, stitching another wound or uniform. The first brushstroke on a portrait, or the last floor on a freedom tower, jutting into a sky that yields to our resilience. One sky toward which we sometimes lift our eyes tired in the morning. Some days guessing at the weather of our lives. Some days giving thanks for a love that loves you back. Sometimes praising a mother who knew how to give, or forgiving a father who could forgive when we were going. But we head home, through the gloss of rain or weight of snow, or the plum blush of dust, but always, always home. Always under one sky, our sky, and always one home. Like a silent drum tapping on every rooftop and every window of one country. All of us facing the stars and hope. A new constellation, waiting for us to name it. Waiting for us to name it together.
Thank you very much, Richard. Actually, before we move on to questions, there was a group that wrote a poem in honor of yours, and so we'd like to have them come up first. So, Miss Jackson's class, will you please come up?
This is how we interpreted one today for our school. We wrote this in small groups. Each group wrote 2 verses, and I am happy to introduce Ava Neary and our class to read One School, Our Community. One school, our community. Students wake up from Alma, Damariscotta, Newcastle, and Bremen to pack lunches with healthy fruits and sandwiches. Yellow buses pull up to houses. You walk up the aisle to join your friend, squished into the leather seat. You watch as the driver smoothly drives down the road. Students fill the hallways, their damp slippers squeaking on the tiles along the way. Teachers writing schedules on the board, unstacking chairs, getting ready to begin the day. Learning to read, learning about the 1600s, learning how to share and when not to share, all under the same roof. Working together to make our school a better place, having a safe community, and being respectful to each other. Sharing knowledge and learning things every day. Pencils, papers, and books. We learn, we ask, we think, we write and type. We play with friends and have many laughs. We share slides, swings, and basketball courts with giggles. One school, our school. We are here every day for 5 days and 7 hours of our life. Kindergartners crying, pencils on paper and the squeak of markers on whiteboards. 5 beeps before announcements. Gym cries overpowered by the sound of winning and music. Lunch and recess. The silence of the library and the chorus of the Pledge of Allegiance. Some like reading, math, books, and science, while others enjoy computers outside and video games. Today we ride the bus to friendship and education, in good weather and bad. We hear children, birds singing, laughter in the air, and the Damariscotta River rising. We hear all the sounds because we are in this world together. When the day ends and the sun goes down, we are ready to start this very day all over again, with determination and being together and hope for a better future.
All right, so we're going to start with some of the younger grade questions first. So, this one comes from Miss Simon's class. How do you write poems?
How do I write poems? Well, do you mean like where I sit or like sort of the craft of it? Well, where I sit at the kitchen table most of the time. But one of the things we just went through today is really one of the core things about writing poems. It's all about the century pizzas, as you just heard in this great poem too. You saw, especially at the end, you saw all those sounds coming out and the yellow bus and all, a lot of writing is, and so that's really at the core of how I write a poem.
Thank you. All right, for Mrs. Hannah's class, what gave you the idea for this poem, which I think you kind of touched upon, for where you came from and trying to get roots? Do you want to explain more about that?
Yeah, sure. I guess I've always wanted to feel at home. I've always looked for having some sense of belonging in a place. And if you really read into the poem, it's really about sort of all of us being together as sort of as one family, all one today, right? That sense of coming home and belonging. And that was inspired a lot by my family, by the community that I grew up in, but also by the community in Bethel, Maine, where it's a small community of 25 people, really. But that sense of people, that how connected we are, how we all fun. Yes. I guess I gotta tell you, being a poet is like being anything else that you love in life. There seems to be sometimes some mystery about being an artist or a poet in this case, as if it's just magic or you just imagine. Really, it's a lot of work and a lot of fun, like anything that you choose to do in life. Like any subject, really. It's a matter of just rolling up your sleeves and working on it, and et cetera, whether that's a math problem or that's a poem. It really is, you know, it's not all that mysterious. We work, we have to figure it out, we put in our time, and we reap the benefits of that.
Thank you. This question is from Mrs. Fake's class. Why do you think President Obama chose your poem?
Well, he didn't choose my poem per se. He chose me first, and then they asked me to write 3 poems actually, and he chose this one. But I think ultimately, if you think about our president's biography, remember what I was saying about I was from Cuba to Spain to New York by the time I was 45 years old, and been all over the place. If you go back and read the president's biography, it is sort of a very interesting childhood as well. His parents were from different countries. He was raised largely by his grandmother, I believe. And so I can imagine him as a little kid asking those same questions about home, about place, wondering what his place was in America. And of course, he grows up to be the president of America, the president of the United States. But I think that's the connection. I think that I guess that he had the same sort of struggles with home, with a sense of place and home and identity, or connect, at least a lot of questions about that.
Did you think of the title before you wrote the poem or after you wrote the poem?
That changes from poem to poem. Sometimes you just think of a title, and it's such a great title, and you write the poem around the title. In this case, it usually happened neck and neck. After I wrote, sort of went through the whole, I knew I wanted to do, you know, that from the sunrise to the evening, and then it was too silly to call it just today, because that was too simple. But the idea of one today, the idea of us being one today, one people, one country, one nation, sort of echoed in that. And then it's one day, like every day, in a sense, also that this is what we do every day. So at the same time, it works on both levels.
This question was asked by a lot of different classes. Why did you choose Dave Pilkey to do the illustrations?
Dave, I'll show you my favorite here. You've already seen some of this, but there's my mom at the cash register. My little black cat. I just want to show you my favorite panel here. Let's do some right here. There we go. That. I just, you can see how, you know, the whole page is filled, and so I just fell in love with his work. You know, I felt like his work echoed the poem. Remember what I was saying about sensory details? You know how look how rich that is. You know, you can almost see hear the cars passing, the honking of the cabs. You can almost smell, you know, the air. I mean, you can see that beautiful light in the background. You can hear the squeaking of the wheels on the car. So I just felt like his paintings were full of so many sensory details, and I just fell in love with it right from the beginning.
Excellent, thank you. This is a question you might not know the full number of, but how many poems have you written?
Somehow, it seems to be a very curious question that people want to know. I don't know. 8,000? I mean, it's not about numbers. I guess I want to answer it that way. You know, it's really about writing the best as you can. I mean, one poem can take me a year to write. But you know, I've written 3 collections of poetry, so 120 poems, but probably for those 120, I've probably written about 3 times as many poems that are just drafts or never make it to the final poem. So, like I said, it's work.
Keep writing, folks, keep writing. All right, what was the longest poem you've ever written? This is from Miss McNichol's class. And what's another poem? Well, we know some other poems you've written, but what's another poem you're very proud of?
I think one today is actually one of the longest poems I've ever written. It might be one that's a little bit longer. It's a pretty long poem. The poem I shared with you today, Looking for the Golf Motel, is one of my favorite poems of mine. Obviously, a lot of favorite poems that are not mine, but that is one of my sort of favorite poems right now. That's why I wanted to share it.
Mrs. Verni's class asked you, how long did it take you to write the poem one today?
As I said, I had 3 weeks to write the poem. So basically, a poem a week I had to submit to the White House. So it took me a week. However, that was a week writing on stock, and everything else was put away. I did not do it. All I did was wake up and write, and go to bed and write, and wake up and write. The whole week. But every poem is different. Some of them you can write in a week. Some of them you can write. Some of them take a year. Some of them take 2 months. Some of them take 2 hours. It really all depends on what you're trying and the difficulty of the poem. And again, I guess I just want to say, relating what poetry is to just whatever we do in life. When someone, for example, at a football game, you know how many hours of practice and sweat and running went into that quarterback's great game, right? And so a lot of it is the same with poetry. There's a lot of stuff you don't see that happens in the background. It takes work, it takes discipline, it takes practice, it takes rehearsing to get it. Thank you.
We know because you referred to it one today that you also speak Spanish, but they also are wondering, do you speak any other languages?
No, just Spanish. Sorry.
Mrs. Greg's class asks, what was the first poem you ever wrote?
The very first poem I ever wrote was about a spider. And I really didn't start writing until I was in my 20s. At least not seriously. And I remember writing a poem about a spider. And it was a spider web that every morning when I went to work, the spider web was from the hedge to the door handle, and every day I tear down the spider web, and there it'd be again the next morning, and it was a contemplation of that, the determination of that spider. Little chart up there.
Another question they asked is related to a 5th grade question, so I'm going to put the two together. Did you get to collaborate very much with Dave Pilkey with the illustrations? And if so, are any of the characters drawn in the book based upon you or other people that you know? We know you said your mother at the counter.
Yeah. I really didn't collaborate in the sense of, because I'm not a painter, I'm terrible at paintings. I can't even trace my hand on a piece of paper. And I just loved everything he did, and he would ask me for feedback, but I was like, this is great, I love it, I don't know what else to say. I don't know how to be critical of the work, because it just really seemed so perfect. So we got to collaborate in that way. At one point we were going to make the poem, we were going to abridge the poem, we were going to cut out sections of the poem and make it a little shorter. And it was actually his decision to go back to it and just leave the poem exactly as it was. So that was really neat. What was it? The second?
Are you one of the drawn characters in the book?
I was interested myself how he was going to, I guess, I'm a little boy, I guess, because it's interesting, the narrator is sort of just a narrator, but he's not really drawn. Obviously, the little boy is not telling the poem, but it's sort of me, and I don't know how he knew. I actually have a little black cat, and I don't know how he knew that. And the cat is not in the poem, obviously. And then I guess I have an older sister. I just love her because I don't have any sisters and I always wanted a sister. So it's kind of, Dave kind of read my mind in some ways. And then of course my mom, that's fairly obvious, you know, but I love that I put my mom in there because she's so important to me and to the poem. This is one of my favorite too. It's just like prancing around.
Mr. Coleman's class is wondering what was the process you went through to create one today? We know that it took you a week, but where did you write it at your house?
I wrote it here in Bethel, and a lot of the hard stuff about writing, you have to study writing and craft and all this sort of stuff and learn how to write, but also sometimes it's a problem with inspiration. The really big important question for me that was stopping me from writing the poem was that I wasn't sure that I really was American. I wasn't sure, as I was trying to explain earlier, you know, that I wasn't convinced. There was a little part of me that still felt I needed to be that little boy on television, and that was part of what it meant to be an American. And then I realized that that's not true, that America is this sort of grand spectrum of people with all different languages, different colors of skin, different cultural backgrounds, different genders, all the rest. And sort of when I got over that hump is when I was able to sort of, I was standing in the kitchen sink and the sun was rising,